Have you ever felt the weight of the world on your shoulders? That feeling of running a marathon with no finish line, where every step is driven by the relentless pursuit of more. More success, more things, more recognition, more connections. We live in an age of abundance where everything is just a click away, yet paradoxically many of us feel more empty and anxious than ever. It's as if we're filling a bottomless pit with objects and distractions, hoping to find something that will make us whole. But what if the answer isn't in adding but in subtracting? What if true wisdom isn't found in the noise, but in the silence? Imagine for a moment a life where you don't have to prove anything to anyone. A life where happiness isn't measured by what you own, but by the peace you feel. This is the promise of the simple life. A philosophy that doesn't preach scarcity but intentionality. Get ready for a journey that will challenge everything you've learned about success and happiness. We will uncover why the great sages of history from Seneca to Thoreau found in simplicity the key to a full and purposeful life. We're going to explore how less can, in fact, be so much more. If you're searching for a life with more meaning, inner peace, and the clarity to make decisions aligned with your soul, this content is for you. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because with every video we'll deconstruct the complex and find wisdom in the essential together. 1. The paradox of abundance, drowning in a sea of options. I used to believe that freedom was synonymous with having many choices. The more career options, product choices, places to go, the freer I would feel. But over time, I realized that this abundance was actually a subtle trap. I remember spending hours in a supermarket, paralyzed in front of dozens of yogurt brands, each promising a different benefit. What should have been a simple decision became an exercise in anxiety. Which one is healthier? More ethical? Tastier? In the end, I would leave feeling mentally exhausted, not from a difficult task, but from the weight of trivial micro-decisions. This phenomenon has a name: decision fatigue. Our brain has a limited capacity to make quality decisions throughout the day. When we deplete this energy with insignificant choices, what to wear, what to eat, what movie to watch, we run out of fuel for the decisions that truly matter. Modern society sells us the idea that more is better, but the reality is that an excess of options paralyzes us. It creates constant mental noise, a voice that incessantly asks, "Did I make the right choice? What if the other option was better?" This culture of abundance also fuels a vicious cycle of comparison. With access to infinite social media feeds, we are bombarded with images of perfect lives. We see others traveling to exotic places, buying luxury cars, achieving professional milestones. Unconsciously, we begin to measure our worth against these external benchmarks. The joy of a small personal achievement is quickly overshadowed by the feeling that we're not doing enough, that we're falling behind. We are drowning not just in options but in expectations. The simple life offers us a lifeboat. By reducing the number of choices, we free our minds. By choosing to live with less, we free ourselves from the need to compare. It is an invitation to leave the turbulent sea of abundance and find calm on an island of intentionality. 2. Redefining success, the richness of inner peace. What does success mean to you? For a long time, my answer to this question was a pre-packaged script from society. A prestigious title, a six-figure salary, a big house, the latest car. I chased these symbols with a fierce determination, believing that by achieving them, I would find the happiness and respect I craved. I remember the day I got the dream promotion. There was a brief moment of euphoria, followed by a surprising emptiness. The trophy was in my hand, but the feeling of victory wasn't in my heart. I realized I was playing someone else's game. The simple life invites us to tear up that script and write our own definition of success. It teaches us that true wealth is not measured in bank figures, but in peace of mind. What's the point of having a mansion if you can't sleep at night, tormented by anxiety and stress? What's the point of having a position of power if you have no time for the people you love or the hobbies that feed your soul? The wisdom of simplicity lies in prioritizing what is internally valuable, not what is externally impressive. I then began an exercise in self-assessment. I asked myself, what makes me feel truly alive? When do I feel most authentic and at peace? The answers were surprisingly simple. A walk in nature at dawn, a deep conversation with a friend, the process of learning a new skill, the silence of a good book. None of these things required a fortune or a high status. They only required time and presence. By redefining success in terms of purpose, connection, and well-being, the pressure to have more disappeared. It was replaced by a desire to be more. To be more present, more compassionate, more authentic. This is the greatest promotion anyone can receive. It is the transition from a life of empty achievements to a life of genuine contentment. 3. The mental clarity of simplicity, less stuff, more focus. Our external environments are a direct reflection of our internal states. Look at your desk right now. Look at your bedroom. Are they filled with things, papers, accumulated objects? For years, my home was a labyrinth of possessions. Every shelf, every drawer was full of things I might need someday. I didn't realize it, but each of these objects was a small weight on my mind. Each item was a postponed decision, a pending task, a visual reminder of disorder. The physical clutter created mental clutter, a fog that prevented me from thinking clearly. The journey to simplicity often begins with the physical act of decluttering. I remember the first weekend I dedicated to it. I started with my wardrobe. I took everything out and asked myself the question proposed by minimalists: does this bring me joy? Have I used this in the last year? It was shocking to see how many things I kept out of obligation, guilt, or a vague, what if? With every piece of clothing I decided to donate, I felt a physical relief, as if I were taking a weight off my back. At the end of the process, the empty space in the closet seemed to breathe. And to my surprise, so did I. This clarity extended beyond my room. By living in a cleaner, more organized environment, my mind began to operate differently. The background noise subsided. Suddenly, I had more mental space to focus on a single task, to dive into a book without getting distracted, to have creative ideas. Simplicity in my environment taught me that our brain craves order. When we remove visual excess, we free up precious cognitive resources. We stop spending energy managing our stuff, and start investing it in our thoughts, projects, and passions. Living with less is not about having an empty house. It's about having a mind full of possibilities, not distractions. It's the discovery that empty space is not a vacuum, but a blank canvas ready to be filled with what truly matters. 4. Simplicity in relationships. Depth instead of breadth. In the digital age, we are led to believe that the value of our social life is measured in numbers. Hundreds of friends on Facebook, thousands of followers on Instagram. I fell into this trap too. I collected contacts as if they were trophies, proud of my vast network. However, in a moment of personal crisis, I looked at that endless list of names and felt an overwhelming loneliness. I had a crowd of acquaintances but very few real friends, the ones I could call in the middle of the night with no filters and no masks. The wisdom of the simple life teaches us to apply the less is more principle to our relationships as well. It invites us to trade breadth for depth. Instead of spreading our energy across hundreds of superficial connections, we can invest it in a smaller circle of people who genuinely nourish and support us. This doesn't mean isolating ourselves from the world, but being intentional about who we allow into our most intimate space. It means choosing quality over quantity. This process of relational decluttering can be uncomfortable. It requires the honesty to recognize which friendships are based on habit or convenience, not on an authentic connection. It requires the courage to set boundaries and say no to invitations and interactions that drain our energy. But the result is liberating. By focusing on fewer relationships, we gain the most valuable gift of all: presence. We have more time and energy to truly listen, to share vulnerabilities, to celebrate victories, and to offer a shoulder in times of pain. I began to cultivate my friendships like a garden. Instead of trying to water 100 plants with a nearly empty watering can, I started tending to a small flower bed with all my attention. The connections blossomed in a way I had never experienced before. Conversations became richer, trust deeper, and support unshakable. I discovered that true social wealth is not about how many names you have in your address book, but how many hearts you can touch with sincerity. The simple life reminds us that, in a world of noise, a single authentic conversation is worth more than 1,000 likes. Five. Liberation from consumerism, wanting what you already have. Our society is driven by an insatiable engine, desire. We are constantly bombarded with the message that happiness lies in the next product, the next purchase. The new smartphone, the fashionable sneakers, the latest car. Marketing is brilliant at creating a feeling of inadequacy, at making us believe that our current life is incomplete without that something extra. I lived in this cycle for a long time. I worked hard to earn money, which I spent on things that gave me a momentary peak of pleasure, quickly followed by a new desire. It was the hedonic treadmill in action. Running endlessly just to stay in the same place emotionally. The simple life offers a way off this treadmill. It presents us with a radical idea, almost subversive in our culture: contentment. Instead of focusing on what we lack, The wisdom of simplicity teaches us to appreciate what we already have. Stoic philosophers like Seneca were talking about this millennia ago. They taught that true wealth does not consist in having great possessions, but in having few wants. It's a revolutionary shift in perspective. What if the key to happiness isn't getting what you want but wanting what you already have? I started practicing gratitude intentionally. Every morning before picking up my phone, I would list 3 things I already had that I was grateful for. It could be something as simple as the comfort of my bed, the smell of coffee, or the health of my family. This small ritual began to reprogram my brain. Instead of waking up thinking about what I needed to buy, I woke up with a feeling of abundance. The compulsive need to consume began to diminish. I started buying with intention, not on impulse. Before acquiring something new, I would ask myself, will this truly add value to my life, or is it just a passing desire? This approach freed me from 2 major prisons: the financial prison of always being in debt to maintain a lifestyle, and the mental prison of always being dissatisfied. I discovered immense joy in the things that money can't buy: a walk in the park, an afternoon of reading, shared laughter with friends. The simple life is not about depriving yourself of everything, but about freeing yourself from the tyranny of desire. It's understanding that the best things in life aren't things. 6. Managing time wisely, the luxury of doing nothing. In our culture of toxic productivity, time is seen as a resource to be optimized to the last second. Our schedules are packed, our to-do lists are endless, and the phrase, "I'm so busy," is worn almost like a badge of honor. I was a master at this. My calendar looked like a game of Tetris, with each block of time perfectly fitted. I prided myself on my ability to juggle multiple projects and commitments. The problem was, living like this, I was always rushing, always anxious about the next item on the list. I was physically present, but my mind was already on the next task. I wasn't living, I was just executing. The simple life proposes a radically different approach to time. It teaches us that the goal is not to do more things but to do the right things. It's the philosophy of essentialism, identifying what is truly vital and eliminating everything else. This requires the ability to say no. To say no to projects that don't align with your values. To say no to social events you attend out of obligation. To say no to the pressure of always being online and available. Every no you say to a non-essential activity is a powerful yes you give to what really matters: your health, your relationships, your peace of mind. One of the greatest gifts that simplicity has given me is unstructured time. The luxury of having hours in my schedule with no defined purpose. At first, it was uncomfortable. The urge to be productive was strong. But gradually, I learned to embrace these empty spaces. In these moments of leisure, my creativity flourished. I had insights I never would have had in the midst of the rush. I reconnected with forgotten hobbies. I simply sat and watched the world go by, an almost meditative practice. I discovered that rest is not the opposite of work. It is an integral part of it. Simplifying your time management doesn't mean being lazy. It means being strategic and intentional. It's choosing depth over superficiality. It's preferring to complete one meaningful task with full presence than to do 10 things halfway. It's understanding that the greatest luxury we can have in the 21st century is not an expensive watch, but the time to not look at the watch at all. 7. The connection with nature, the antidote to the artificial world. We increasingly live in boxes. We work in offices, boxes, live in apartments, boxes, and move around in cars, boxes, looking at small luminous screens, more boxes. We are progressively distancing ourselves from our original environment, nature. I didn't realize how much this disconnection affected me until one day when, feeling overwhelmingly stressed, I impulsively decided to drive to a nearby park. I took off my shoes, stepped on the grass, and took a deep breath. It was as if a switch had been flipped in my mind. The buzz of anxiety was replaced by the sound of the wind in the trees and the singing of birds. The simple life reminds us that we are part of nature, not separate from it. Seeking this connection is one of the most powerful and accessible ways to find peace and perspective. Nature demands nothing from us. It doesn't care about our job title, our bank account, or our followers. In its presence, we are simply human, part of something much larger and older. This humility is therapeutic. The problems that seemed gigantic within the 4 walls of my office suddenly seemed manageable under the vastness of the blue sky. Incorporating nature into my routine has become a non-negotiable priority. It doesn't have to be an epic expedition to the Himalayas. It can be a 20-minute walk in a local park during lunch. It can be caring for a few plants on the balcony. It can be sitting on a bench and simply watching the clouds go by. These small doses of nature act as a reset for the nervous system, lowering cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and improving mood. Nature is also the greatest teacher of simplicity. A tree does not rush to grow, it follows its own rhythm. The seasons change in a perfect cycle of activity and rest. There is no excess, no waste. Everything works in a harmonious balance. By connecting with the natural world, we absorb these lessons of patience, resilience, and interconnection. In an increasingly artificial, noisy, and complex world, nature is our antidote. It is the way back home to our essence. 8. Nourishing the body and mind, simplicity on the plate and on the screen. The complexity of the modern world has invaded not only our closets and schedules, it has also invaded our bodies and minds. Think about food. Supermarket aisles are filled with ultra-processed products with ingredient lists we can barely pronounce. They promise convenience but often rob us of our vitality. Similarly, think about information. We are exposed to a deluge of news, notifications, opinions, and ads 24/7. This promises to keep us connected, but in reality, it fragments our attention and fuels our anxiety. The wisdom of simplicity invites us to adopt a cleaner, more intentional approach to both our food diet and our information diet. For the body, this translates to going back to basics. Eating real food. Fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, ingredients our grandparents would recognize. I remember when I swapped packaged snacks for a simple apple. The change was subtle but profound. I felt more energetic, lighter. Cooking my own food instead of relying on delivery became a meditative act, a way to connect with what I was putting inside my body. Simplifying eating is not about restriction, but about nourishment and respect for our physical vehicle. For the mind, the process is similar. I started practicing what I call digital hygiene. I turned off all non-essential notifications on my phone. I set specific times to check emails and social media, instead of being reactive all day. I unfollowed accounts that made me feel inadequate or irritated and started following artists, writers, and thinkers who inspired me. The most impactful change was instituting a silent hour before bed, where I swapped screens for a paper book. My sleep improved dramatically and my mind, which used to be a whirlwind of anxious thoughts at night, became calmer. Simplifying what we consume, be it food or information, is an act of self-defense and self-care. It's protecting our inner peace from the invasion of excess. It's deliberately choosing to nourish our body with health and our mind with wisdom, instead of clogging them with processed junk and digital noise. 9. The richness of experiences, accumulating memories, not things. There was a time when my money was almost entirely spent on buying things. The latest tech, designer clothes, new furniture. I believed these possessions would define me, that they would project an image of success. But the thrill of the purchase was always fleeting. The new phone became obsolete in months. The trendy outfit went out of style. The objects, no matter how expensive, eventually became part of the landscape, losing their initial shine. A famous scientific study from Cornell University confirmed what ancient wisdom already knew. Spending money on experiences brings us more lasting happiness than spending it on material goods. The simple life embraces this truth wholeheartedly. It encourages us to shift our focus from accumulating possessions to accumulating memories. Experiences become part of who we are. A trip, a course, a concert, a dinner with friends, these things integrate into our identity, shape our perspective, and provide us with stories to tell. I remember a decision I made a few years ago. Instead of buying a new luxury watch I wanted, I used the money to take a simple backpacking trip to a place I had always dreamed of visiting. The watch would have given me temporary pleasure and maybe a few compliments. The trip, on the other hand, gave me unforgettable sunsets, conversations with strangers who became friends, challenges that made me grow, and a self-confidence that I carry with me to this day. The memories of that trip have not depreciated over time. On the contrary, they have become more valuable. Living with simplicity has allowed me to redirect my resources, time and money, to what truly enriches life. I learned to cook, to play an instrument, to speak a new language. I invested in workshops, in short weekend trips, and going to the theater. Each of these experiences was a brick in building a richer, more meaningful life. Unlike objects, experiences cannot be stolen, they don't break, and they don't go out of style. They become the treasure of our hearts. The simple life teaches us that the goal is not to have a house full of beautiful things, but a soul full of beautiful stories. 10. Finding purpose in the essential. What remains when everything is gone? Imagine you've lost everything you own, your house, your car, your belongings. Now, imagine you've also lost your titles and your status, your job title, your professional achievements. What's left? This question, though frightening, is one of the most powerful we can ask ourselves. It forces us to look beyond the external layers we identify with and find our essence. For a long time, I wouldn't have known how to answer. My identity was so intertwined with my possessions and my work that, without them, I would have felt like a nobody. The journey of the simple life is, in its essence, a journey of peeling. It's like peeling an onion. With each layer of non-essential that we remove, consumerism, the need for approval, the packed schedule, the clutter, we get closer to the core. And in that core we find our true purpose. When we stop distracting ourselves with what society tells us we should want, we can finally hear the soft voice of our own soul telling us what we really want. For me, this process revealed that my purpose was not in a job title, but in an action, helping people find clarity in their own lives. I realized that I could do this in countless ways, regardless of my professional status. It could be through a conversation with a friend, by writing, or simply by living in a way that inspired others. The purpose was not a destination to be reached, but a path to be walked. Living with simplicity creates the necessary space for this discovery. When your mind isn't busy worrying about the next purchase or what others think, it's free to contemplate the big questions. What are my core values? What are my unique talents? How can I use these talents to serve something greater than myself? By focusing on the essential, we discover that what really matters are not the answers we get from the world, but the questions we ask ourselves. Purpose is not something we find out there, it's something we unearth in here. The simple life doesn't give us a purpose, but it gives us the most important tool to find it: the silence to listen to our own heart. 11. Overcoming the fear of missing out, FOMO, the joy of missing out. One of the biggest obstacles to a simple life in the connected world is FOMO, fear of missing out. It's that anxiety that arises when we see friends at a party we weren't invited to, or when we read about a new trend we're not following. FOMO is the engine of conformity. It pushes us to say yes when we want to say no, to buy things we don't need, and to live a life that is not authentically ours, all for fear of exclusion. I was a chronic victim of FOMO. My phone vibrated incessantly, and each notification was a bait I took, afraid of missing an important news story, a funny meme, or a last-minute invitation. Living like this was exhausting. I was constantly reactive, my attention fragmented, my sense of peace non-existent. Being present in the moment was impossible because part of me was always wondering what was happening elsewhere. The wisdom of simplicity offers us a powerful antidote to FOMO. JOMO, joy of missing out. JOMO is the satisfaction we feel when we intentionally choose to stay out. It's the peace of a quiet evening at home with a book, while the world outside is in a frenzy. It's the freedom to turn off your phone and be fully present with your family. It's the confidence of knowing you don't have to participate in everything to have a rich and meaningful life. Cultivating JOMO was an act of conscious rebellion. I started small. I left my phone in another room during dinner. I declined an invitation to an event that didn't excite me without making elaborate excuses. At first, the FOMO anxiety was still there, whispering, "You're missing out." But as I persisted, I discovered something wonderful. I discovered the joy of my own company. I discovered the depth of uninterrupted conversations. I discovered that the world didn't stop turning if I didn't reply to a message immediately. Embrace JOMO. Celebrate your intentional choices to disconnect. Understand that by losing the noise you gain clarity. By losing the distractions you gain focus. By losing the obligation to be everywhere, you gain the freedom to be exactly where you want to be. The simple life teaches us that true connection doesn't come from being everywhere at once, but from being fully present in one place at a time. 12. Practical steps for a simpler life. The journey begins with a single step. Talking about the philosophy of a simple life is inspiring, but real transformation happens in practice. The idea of simplifying everything at once can seem overwhelming. Where do you start? The answer is start small. The journey to a wiser, simpler life is not an overnight revolution. It's an evolution, one step at a time. I want to share some practical steps that helped me start this journey. Choose one that resonates with you and give it a try. First, do a 30-minute digital cleanup. Pick up your phone right now. Turn off all notifications that aren't from real people, like calls or direct messages. Unsubscribe from email newsletters you never read. Unfollow social media accounts that make you feel bad about yourself. It's a small act with an immediate impact on your mental peace. Second, adopt the one-in, one-out rule. For every new item you buy and bring into your home, a piece of clothing, a book, an electronic, choose a similar item to donate or discard. This simple rule prevents the gradual accumulation of clutter and forces you to be more mindful of your purchases. Third, plan one analog night per week. Choose one evening to completely disconnect from all screens from a certain time. No TV, no computer, no phone. Use this time to read, talk, play music, play a board game, or simply do nothing. Rediscover the joy of a world without blue light. Fourth, try the capsule wardrobe challenge for a month. Choose a limited number of clothing items, e.g. 30 items including shoes, and wear only those pieces for the month. You'll discover two things. No one will notice, and getting dressed in the morning will become incredibly easy and fast, freeing up your mental energy for more important decisions. Finally, practice gratitude for what you already have. Start or end your day by listing 3 specific things you are grateful for. It could be the sunlight coming through the window, a warm cup of tea, or a kind word you received. Gratitude is the quickest antidote to desire and dissatisfaction. Remember, the goal is not perfection. There will be days when complexity will try to creep back in. What's important is the direction, not the speed. Every small step towards simplicity is a victory for your soul. Throughout this journey, we've explored how the simple life is not about deprivation, but about liberation. It's freedom from the need to impress, from the anxiety of infinite choices, from the tyranny of consumerism, and from the fear of missing out. It is, as Leonardo da Vinci said, the ultimate sophistication. To live simply is an act of wisdom in a world that glorifies complexity. It's choosing peace over noise, purpose over distraction, and contentment over eternal desire. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. What is the first non-essential thing you can let go of? Maybe it's an object that's gathering dust. Maybe it's a commitment that drains your energy. Or maybe it's a limiting belief that you need more to be happy. Whatever it is, identify it. And take the first step to free yourself from it. The journey to a wiser, simpler life begins now, with a single conscious decision. And remember, you are not alone in this. Share in the comments what your first practical step towards simplicity will be. Your journey might inspire someone else to start theirs. Let's build a more meaningful life together. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss our next dives into wisdom. Transformation is an ongoing process. And as always, the best is yet to come.